the Open Meetings Act and Public Act 101-640, I find it is not practical or prudent to conduct an in-person meeting. This open regular meeting of the President and Board of Trustees of the Village of Hinsdale is therefore being conducted remotely. Public Act 101-640 allows public bodies to meet remotely during public health disasters, so long as the public is able to monitor the meeting and certain other conditions are met. Public comment is permitted during the citizens petitions portions of the meeting. When we get to those portions of the meeting, I'll ask persons wishing to make public comments to identify themselves. If anyone wishing to speak has difficulty connecting to the meeting by Zoom, please call Assistant Village Manager Brad Bloom at 630-789-7007. Okay, Chris, you want to take roll call?
Yes. Trustee Postuma,
Here.
Trustee Hanky,
Here.
Trustee Stifler,
Here.
Trustee Hughes,
Here.
Trustee Harlow,
Here.
Trustee Burns,
Here.
President Colley.
Here.
Thank you.
So can I have a motion to approve the minutes of the regular meeting of February 2nd, 2021?
Move to approve the minutes from February 2nd, 2021.
Second.
Any changes from anybody?
The date in the first paragraph needs to get fixed.
Yes, you're right. Good catch, Matt.
Thank you, Matt.
That's what a contract or transaction lawyer brings to the table. Anything else? Roll call vote.
Trustee Postuma,
Aye.
Trustee Banky,
Aye.
Trustee Stifler,
Aye.
Trustee Hughes,
Aye.
Trustee Harlow,
Aye.
Trustee Burns.
Aye.
Thank you.
Takes us to President's comments. First, I'd like to thank once again the Public Works and Public Services staff that have been working around the clock for weeks now, keeping our roads passable because of all the snowfall we've had. They've done a fantastic job. On the coronavirus update, on Wednesday, February 3rd, we are moving to phase 4, which will mean gatherings of 50 people or fewer are allowed, and indoor dining is permitted at restaurants subject to the Illinois Department of Health's limitations. DuPage County's rolling positivity rate is now at 4.1%, which is a positive development since a couple months ago. As of Monday, Hinsdale Hospital reported there's only 1 person under investigation for COVID and 3 in the hospital. As of February 15th, the DuPage County website is reporting 1,153 COVID cases in Hinsdale, and that's up from 1,108, which was reported at last meeting, and that's an increase of 45 cases. 161 of those 1,153 cases occurred in the long-term care facility. There have been 51 deaths reported in the DuPage County part of Hinsdale, in Hinsdale part of DuPage County, with 48% of those deaths coming from the long-term care facility. So 51 deaths and 48 of them come from Manor Care. As of February 15th, the Cook County website reported 155 COVID cases in Hinsdale. And as of February 15th, there were 8 deaths reported in the Cook County portion of Hinsdale, and that remains unchanged since my last report. The Illinois Department of Health website is reporting 53 new cases at Manor Care, which is somewhat surprising because I thought everybody at Manor Care had been inoculated, but we'll have to look into that. On the vaccine front, I want to extend my congratulations and appreciation to District 86. They've been running the vaccine inoculations for the village for people 65 and over, and they've done a fantastic job. District 86 Superintendent Tammy Prentice and her staff coordinated the event, and they did a good job in organizing it and sending clear directions to people who signed up for the vaccination. Lines moved very quickly and efficiently, and they just did an outstanding job. Should more vaccines become available, the village and District 86 will work with the vaccine provider and the DuPage County Health Department to notify the communities of eligible categories. Right now, the eligibility is people involved in the healthcare profession, as well as people 65 and older. As more people become in the queue for vaccines and we get more vaccines to distribute, we'll let people know. That brings us to another issue I wanted to discuss tonight, and this isn't President's comment. It could just as easily be in the discussion section, but I'll talk about it now. One of the things that we've experienced over the last several years is residents putting ribbons on trees to commemorate the passing of somebody in the community. I think that that's a show of solidarity in the community, and it shows we're a close-knit community and we mourn the passing of residents and family members. But the problem is that oftentimes these ribbons are put up and they're not taken down. And sometimes those ribbons are up for months and months. They become discolored, they fall off the trees. Sometimes there's 3 or 4 ribbons on the same tree. And trees, the parkways are lined with ribbons, and it becomes at some point somewhat unsightly. So what I'd like to do is be able to balance the desire of people to put up ribbons to commemorate the passing of a family member or resident, but at the same time balance that against making sure we keep our village looking good. There's a very vocal group of residents who would like us to pass strict regulations relating to ribbons, and they're fairly tenacious. They email us all the time when they see ribbons and count the number of days ribbons have been up and have not been taken down. And I probably have 600 emails from these people, and I think Brad probably has more. My thought is that we not pass a ordinance regarding ribbons, and the reason for that is I think it'd be very difficult to enforce. I think that it'd be very difficult not only to enforce, but I don't think people will become aware of the ordinance. I think it would be problematic for the village and the staff to be given tickets or citations to people who put up ribbons to commemorate the passing of somebody, and they get a ticket from the village or citation or something. So what I'd like to do, and I think we have a majority of trustees who agree with this. I think that some have different views as to the timing that we keep up the ribbons, but that we have a policy relating to ribbons, and we try to communicate to the community as best we can, so that there's nothing punitive attached to it, but it just kind of lets people know that this is something that we should be conscious of. If you put up ribbons, please take them down. And I don't want to enforce this in any heavy-handed way, but I think we should communicate this to the churches and to the schools and just let them know that we do have a policy relating to ribbons. And the policy that the staff has worked out, and I know Neil has helped on this, is that there'd only be ribbons on parkway trees. And I think that pretty much is the case now. The trees that are really on village property on the parkways are where people putting up ribbons. That the ribbons would have to be removed after some period of time. The proposed policy that we have be 30 days. I know there's at least one trustee that think that's too long, because by the time 30 days come and go, everybody's forgotten about the ribbons. And so it'd be very difficult at 30 days to get people to take down ribbons. So we could well shorten that period, but some period of time that people should be able to remove ribbons. We would make it clear that the people that put up ribbons are responsible for the removal of ribbons, and that any resident that opposes a ribbon in front of their house on the parkway tree on the front of their house will be able to take down that ribbon on that tree or those trees in their parkway. And the village would reserve the right to remove ribbons at any time. So we could, if we wanted to shorten the time period, we could do that. I'd rather not have Public Works out removing ribbons because they have a lot of other work to do, but at some point that may be what we have to do if people don't take them down. But I'd like to encourage residents to take down the ribbons if they put them up. So I guess I don't have a problem with people putting these up, but they just have to take them down in some time frame that appears reasonable. And I think, Jerry, you thought 30 days was too long. I know.
Yeah, it just, I think the passage of time, if they're going to take them down, it seems that there's an organization to put them up.
Yeah.
A loose organization to put them up. You would need a loose organization to take them down.
Yeah.
And realistically to kind of maintain that and, to try to reactivate that after 30 days, that just seems like that's unlikely to happen. So that was my thinking behind 30 days being too long.
So what do you think, 2 weeks?
I think 2 weeks.
Yeah. So one of the things that I think we would communicate, and this would be just this, we could put 2 weeks in, but sometimes I know that on more than one occasion, I think Brad has called people and told them to take down the ribbons, and they wanted to keep them up for some specific period of time for, whether it's somebody's birthday or some event that may go longer than 2 weeks. And I think that if we get a commitment from people that they're going to take them down after that period of time, that would be acceptable too. If there's some specific day that they can give us. So, because what I really want to do here is not at all be punitive or be draconian about this, but I think we should just impress upon people, if you're going to put them up, you got to take them down.
Yeah. And your scenario there, if we're actually communicating with someone and they've thought through what the timing is, and they're telling us that on this date, this is what makes sense, and we'll have people do it, any and all of my concerns would be addressed simply by those circumstances.
Yeah. Yeah. Anybody else have any thoughts on this?
Well, I just think, Tom, that maybe the policy it could be the policy of the village that after 30 days, the village may take them down. So, I mean, I think we're allowed to. And the thing about, I know it sounds like a drag on our public works folks who obviously the last couple of weekends have been hugely busy. But I correct me if I'm wrong, George. I think you're on the line. But I think in an afternoon, a couple of guys can take down all the ribbons, and maybe it costs $150 or something. I mean, that's nothing compared to what we spent this weekend on snow removal.
Yeah, I agree with that. Although I don't want that to be part of the process, because then the default will be that they'll just say, if we don't take them down, but the policy said that Public Works would take them down. I would like to put the onus on the residents to take them down, and we all know that if they're not taken down and people don't follow the rule, we will take them down and have Public Works do it. But I don't know that I want that part of the communication.
Okay, no, that sounds, I think that's fair.
Yeah. Anybody else?
And
have
just a
anything?
minor point there. I mean, let's be clear. These are village trees.
Right.
And so, Tom, I think as you stated it originally is right. The village can take them down at any time.
Right, and that's in the
That's
policy.
the default right there.
Yeah.
Our policy is that, given circumstances, we'll let them stay up for a period of time, but default is we could take them down at any time.
Yeah. And then the residents who are very much concerned about ribbons that stay up too long, they may well approach us at some point with what they consider to be an ordinance that we should pass. But one of the thoughts we had is if we put this in place and it seems to be working, we can maybe dissuade people from coming to us and proposing an ordinance if we can do it this softer approach. And if it doesn't work, maybe we consider passing an ordinance.
I think at the end of the day, everyone, including those, folks who are very concerned about this, is if they come down in 21 days or 30 days or whatever, as long as they come down, I think everybody's going to be
Agreed.
satisfied.
Agreed. And if we get the word out, which Brad's going to do with this policy, and send it to the churches and the schools, and everybody knows we do have a policy, we may well see that compliance is fairly high with the policy. So this may be a problem that solves itself very quickly with the policy.
It would be good to put the policy on our Facebook page.
Yes.
Hinsdale has a Facebook page, because I know, at least with the red ribbons that went up right before Christmas, a lot of that action happened via Facebook.
Okay. I assume the village has a Facebook page. I'm not a Facebook person, but I assume we do.
Well,
Come on, Tom.
I know the police department has one.
Okay.
I don't know if the village has one.
The village doesn't have one specifically, but the Parks Department has one.
Can we put them up on the police
Well,
department?
we would put this on the village website, wouldn't we?
Yeah. But I
Yeah,
think-
village website would be good. The Parks Department Facebook page, that would be really good too, just to get the word out.
yes.
And then also, I don't know if Hinsdale has some kind of a moms group. I know there's one in Clarendon Hills, and I know there's one in Western Springs, but that kind of informal, if we could insert into that type of a network somehow, because that's how a lot of this communication happens also, is
Right.
just, so unfortunately, I'm not informed as to that for Hinsdale, but if we had it, that would be a good way to get the word out
Yeah,
also.
we may be able to get that information from
The,
somebody.
the Real Housewives of Hinsdale.
Yeah,
That's the idea.
Yeah, that's, yeah.
okay. All right, makes sense.
Yeah, I think we got to be real careful here about this policy. I think there have been times in the past where, people who have been, grieving the loss of a loved one have, been approached about this, and it's actually been very, harmful and just not being very nice to people who are going through a really tough time. It's one thing to talk to people who aren't part of the family who's grieving, about these kinds of things. But I guess I would really hesitate to have, people from the village, calling up someone who's lost a loved one and telling them they need to, take a ribbon down.
Yeah,
It's,
yeah, I agree with that, but I think part of the reason why things like that have happened in the past is because we really didn't have a policy. I think now that we have a policy, first of all, no one can feel that we're being arbitrary about it because we have a policy. And I see no reason if we have this policy in place why we have to contact anyone. We'll take them down. This is the policy. And if they're not taken down, the village has the right to take them down after a certain period of time. I mean, I think that this would be a mechanism by which you would avoid those kinds of issues. You don't have to, we're not going to call anybody. We have a policy in place. And if you're going to follow it, you follow it. If you don't, we'll take the ribbons down.
yeah, I just think we got to be careful.
Yeah, no,
I
I
mean,
agree. And that's
I
one of
don't
the
I don't
reasons-
want to be, I don't want the village to start, being the, I don't know, the bearer of bad news or whatever.
No, and I agree with that. And that's why I think it's best not to have an ordinance and just have a policy. This is what we hope. And I do think it's not too much to ask that if you put ribbons up, you take them down. You have a plan for taking them down. 2 weeks seems reasonable. If you want them longer, we certainly will work with you to keep them up longer, but please tell us what your plan is to take them down. I mean, I think that's a reasonable approach. And we're doing this right now without any, issue at hand. So, this is something we're doing even-handedly. And I think if you pass an even-handed ordinance that is not, there's no one who's at this particular moment will be impacted by this different from the way we've handled this in the past. I think this is the right time to pass something like this. I understand your sensitivity, but I still think, I do think the residents who are complaining about ribbons being up for 3 or 4 or 5 months have a legitimate concern. And it's more than a few. So.
Yep. And if I can, Tom, just to amplify that point, I mean, it's the policy in that it is well understood. We just need to get to the point where everyone knows, it's common knowledge. This is how things work. This is how things are done in Hinsdale. And if, again, you've got some loosely organized group, there will be people within that group who know, yeah, we've got to address when these come down as well. And we're going to do that on behalf of the family members. And we're not trying to, bring people up to speed in the midst of something. So that'll be the key to success for this.
And as Neil pointed out, rather than calling people and telling them to take down the ribbons and trying to strong arm people to take them down, we will just take them down ourselves. So that's, this is meant to be a way to, a path forward that accommodates everybody's interests. And I think this is the best way to do it.
Not to beat this too much more to death, but if you look at like flying a flag at half staff, for the death of a president, it's 30 days. At the death of a Supreme Court justice or somebody else like the vice president, it's 10 days. So if we split the difference, we go 2 weeks. I think there's a standard there. I think people understand that. And to me, it doesn't appear arbitrary because we're using some kind of a benchmark of another way to memorialize the passing of somebody. And so I don't know if that helps, but I mean, to me, that it's a way to look at it where we're not just, it's not arbitrary. We're looking at this in the grand scheme of things with how other events like this are memorialized.
Yeah. I was unaware of the 30-day, 10-day thing. That's interesting.
Yeah, I just did some cursory research and was able to come up with this in 5 minutes.
That's a great fun fact. So what is it for village presidents? Is it 30 days?
I think it's a year, actually.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay, so that takes us to citizens petition. Anybody on the line, Brad?
Yeah, we do have a number of people on the line. Let me- Okay. They're
So
all.
anybody on the line who wants to speak to a matter that's on or off the agenda, if it's a matter that's on the agenda, you may want to wait until we get to that item, but otherwise you can speak now or at the end of the meeting. Anybody on the line, any citizen wish to say anything to the board? Okay, hearing nothing. That takes us to the first read. Jerry, I think you're up first.
Yeah, so I'll introduce these two items. Well, I guess it's in as one item. So this is 6A. So there are two items in the packet that relate to HPTA. One is an amendment to the agreement that we have with the HPTA, and the other is the approval of an ordinance that would give us the ability to provide a guarantee for a loan to the HPTA. So let me provide background to this. So two years ago, almost 2 years ago, but in 2019, we entered an agreement with the HPTA after a number of years of discussion and negotiation with the Paddle Tennis Association. The agreement addressed a number of issues that we had been kind of dealing with over a number of years. One is that it resolved ambiguity around financial and other responsibilities for the assets, which are the courts in the hut, and the programming, the work that needs to be done in order to run a successful program. And it provided for needed improvements to the courts and renovation and expansion of the hut. And as backdrop, when we added the courts at the KLM and the current hut, which was, someone will have a better command of the specifics, but I think, maybe 12 years ago, or maybe almost 14 years ago now, the village, neither the village nor the HPTA had a lot of experience in what it was going to take to run the program and maintain those assets at that point. And so the agreement wasn't very well done. We had an agreement, it wasn't detailed with regards to a lot of the work that needed to be done. And, again, it created this ambiguity. Also, the paddle in Hinsdale has been very successful, which is a good thing, but successful measured both based on the level of participation in the quality of play and the respect for the program, not just within the Chicagoland area, but nationally. But that did create a lot of pressures, again, both on the assets, the wear and tear on the courts, and just the significant amount of work required to run a program with that level of participation. So effectively, the deal was that HPTA would handle the programming and the maintenance. And so it would be very clear because they were going to take care of all of that. The village would provide a fixed dollar contribution to the operating expenses of the program. So we would continue to support the program, but there wouldn't be any unpredictability or fluctuations in what that support would be. And that we would have a deal to expand and improve the hut, with the village essentially providing the financings. It would look like a loan. We would pay for 10%. Well, we would pay for all of it up front, and the HPTA would pay back 90% of the cost of the hut up to 90% up to $360,000, and anything above $400,000, which was the estimated cost of the improvements, would be borne by the HPTA. And this would be in a lease structure. But in the plan was to begin working on that hut in 2020, which was an unfortunate year to plan for this because of COVID. And because of the uncertainties around the village finances and our, I wouldn't say our ability, but the priorities for the $360,000 that would have been required, we put that on hold and continue to hope that we might be able to move ahead with it during the course of the summer, but we're not able to do so. So the idea came from the HPTA to see if we could seek a bank loan for this. And so we wouldn't put any immediate pressures or liquidity requirements on the village. We actually found a lender who would do that. We've started negotiating, or the HPTA has started negotiating with them on a loan. It's looking good. And so these changes to the agreement and the guarantee would help make that happen. And so the benefits of this is that it preserves the financial flexibility, some financial flexibility for the village. It prevents our good deal with the HPTA from kind of unwinding because this key element doesn't get done when expected. And it actually gets the project done when the hut can't be used in any case. And so it's actually, to a certain extent, taking advantage of the limitations imposed by the COVID situation. So the process at this point, there are materials in the packet. The loan agreement and note are still being negotiated by the HPTA and the bank. And so by the time this gets to a second reading and an approval, we will have those for the trustees to see. And I've also asked, and maybe Brad can provide any further updates, anything else I missed, and to confirm this, but in the agreement, we'll do some further modifications so that the village will see all the loan documentation between the HPTA and the bank, and HPTA will not be able to renegotiate the loan for which we provide the guarantee. And we'll get copies of any notices and other communications regarding the loan between the bank and the HPTA. So I'll stop there. Brad, anything else to add? And then maybe see.
No, I think you covered it pretty well. The loan documents and the agreement will be modified to reflect those changes for the second reading.
Jerry, my understanding is, my recollection is we'd also be responsible for some of the interest payments on the loan.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. So the deal with the HPTA, because we were going from the village essentially being the bank and providing a no interest loan to now we're getting outside financing and there will be interest payments. We had to reach an agreement on, how does that get covered? And we kind of try to split the difference. And so the village will cover interest payments for the first 3 years. This is a 7-year loan. The HPTA will cover that for the last 4 years. And part of the rationale for that was that this project is going to go over $400,000. And so the HPTA is going to use some of those, near early year funds to cover that instead of interest. And then by the back half or the back 4 years of the loan term, they'll have the funds to be able to cover the interest. I will say that it going over $400,000 and the HPTA covering it is a good thing for the village. At the end of the day, this is village-owned asset. And so we're getting more of an investment in that asset than was originally anticipated, without any increase in obligation for the village, other than that we are going to cover the first 3 years of interest.
And to my mind, us paying the first 3 years of interest isn't a deal killer for this, because we have the cash that we otherwise wouldn't have if we fronted the cash for this. So the time value of money, we're basically giving up some of that by paying the interest on it. So I view this as, on balance, better for the village in that we are guaranteeing a loan. We've got cash in hand, although we're paying some of the interest. So I think, on balance, this is a better deal from the village than what we had previous, where we were going to pay the money up front.
Yep. And the interest rate is not what it would be if this were just a straight bond directly from the village, but it's still pretty attractive. It's 3 3/4%, unless someone's aware that that's changed, but that's the last I saw. Yeah.
And Jerry, the reason for the 2-year extension is because the hut hasn't been completed yet.
Right. Yeah, because of the delay in getting the hut done.
Any questions?
We have Marty Brennan and Kevin Parks from HPTA here, if you have any questions for them.
Anything you guys like to say?
No, I think Jerry covered it very well. From HBTA perspective, we're very anxious to make the improvements to the hut, for the membership, and we appreciate being willing to be nimble and figure out another way to finance it. So we appreciate the village's flexibility in that, because it is important for our membership to see sort of, the carrot behind us signing the agreement, that, as Jerry very well knows, is that, our membership, we're asking for an improved facility. And so now that we're able to deliver on that within a relatively timely manner, with COVID being taken into account, is going to be, a way for us to demonstrate to our membership that, that this agreement works to their benefit as well.
Yep. Kevin, any thoughts?
Yeah, it's exciting that we're going to be able to pull it off in this way. And I too thank Jerry for kind of leading the charge on this, and Brad and Daryl as well. Other staff members have had to be creative, and we really appreciate that. But the program is going strong. It just continues to get stronger. It seems like every month and every season. And it's exciting that we're going to be able to follow through on this. And as Jerry alluded to, it really take advantage, for once, of the COVID situation and make something positive out of it. So we're very excited at HPTA.
Good. Any trustees have any questions for the HPTA representatives or for Jerry? Okay, Jerry, so that's up for a second read, or?
Yeah, I think we need to do a second read because, one, a guarantee of this amount, that feels like the right thing to do. And two, we'll have some changes and updates by the time we get to this next.
Okay, great. Thanks, Marty. Thanks, Kevin.
Thanks, Marty. Kevin.
Thanks, everybody.
Okay, that takes us to Neil.
Yep, item 6B is a first read for the 2021 maintenance project construction contract. And we'd like to award this to Builders Paving LLC. Their low bid was $652,000, which is over $100,000 less than we budgeted. Now, these are the streets, you may recall, that we were going to do these last year, but we held dollars back due to the pandemic. And they're listed below there, and they're just, a variety of streets throughout the village. And when this is completed, I mean, the village streets are going to be in pretty darn good shape. With the exception of a couple of streets, we're going to do Garfield next year. We're also going to do the 8th Street from County Line to Garfield, but that's not in this contract. That'll be coming up in another month or two. Anyway, Builders Paving LLC has done good work for us in the past. And as I said, this will really get our streets in very good condition.
Great.
Any questions?
Put on a second read.
For the amount, I think we have to do it for the amount.
I think it's more than $500,000. Maybe we should put on a second read.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, that takes us to item 6C. This is a landscape maintenance contract we'd like to award to Semmer Landscape Incorporated. They did work for us this past year. The prices, and this is for doing the mowing and trimming of the village right away, central business district, removing weeds, taking care of the maintenance of the woodland, rain gardens, and mowing and other services throughout the village. They came in $137,000, $16,000 under budget. And as I said, they've done good work for us in the past.
And this is a contract we signed last year. We're just in a renewal period, right?
Yes. So we budgeted a little bit more because we weren't sure if they were going to raise their prices or not, but they ended up at, they said, no, we'll come in at what we did. And I think we're good to go.
Great.
I think that could go, consent agenda.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, and then item 6D is the elm and ash treatments. And we want to award this to Kunikan Tree Experts. They came in at $148,000, which was $18,000 under budget. And this will be for the elm tree treatments. And they have provided similar services. So they haven't done work for us for us, but they have done similar services for the city of Evanston, the village of Winnetka, and the village of Park Ridge, which of course have a few trees up there. And so that's that for our treatment. Any questions on that?
Neil, can I just ask one question? It says $11.42 per inch. What does that mean?
I had the same question. So I asked, so basically what they do is they measure the tree diameter at chest height, and that's the inches of the tree diameter. It depends on how much of the thing they're going to inoculate it with.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you. I just was curious as to what that
I know. I just the same question.
Neil, do these various companies specify what they're going to use?
They're going to
In other
use
words, in terms of what the actual treatment is.
I'm sure they specify.
I'm on board with the idea of going with the lowest one, but is it the highest quality treatment? And
Okay,
John
yeah.
might be the one who can best answer that.
And John is on the phone too. John, can you handle that one? Are there different treatment methods?
I don't know.
John Fennell, are you on the line?
He's there.
Okay, I thought he was going to be.
His
Hello?
name's there.
He's muted right now, John.
Very good.
Okay, I figured out the mute. In our contract, our bid documents, we specify the product that needs to be used, the chemical, as well as the rate of use. So it's apples to apples across the board in all the bids. It has to be Arbortech, which is made by Bayer Chemical, and it has to be at a certain rate per diameter inch.
Okay, thanks.
Anything else on this?
Any other questions? I think we could put that on the consent agenda as well.
Yep. Okay,
Okay, thank you.
Luke?
Yeah, which brings us to agenda items 6E and 6F. I'm gonna, both of these are first reads, and I'm gonna discuss them together this evening. They're very closely tied. Item 6E is to approve an ordinance. I'm sorry, are you guys getting feedback from me?
Not too bad.
Okay. Item 6E is to approve an ordinance amending section 6-12-3B of the village code to allow for the installation of stop signs for north and southbound traffic on Lincoln and 3rd Street. This location had previously been cited by concerns by residents, and the police department did begin to actively monitor the intersection in 2017. While there were no crashes in 2017, in the past 2 years, there have been 8 crashes that have occurred at this intersection. As such, the crash history meets the standards that are established by the manual on uniform traffic control devices for the installation of traffic control devices. And it is recommended by our police department to install stop signs for the north and the southbound traffic on Lincoln and 3rd Street. So that's the first part of this request. Now, I wanted to break that off because I think that's a fairly easy answer with the crash history. If trustees recall, approximately about a year ago, there were a number of uncontrolled intersections that we changed in the northeast quadrant and then also in the southwest quadrant of the village. This next request, which is agenda item 6F, falls more into line, or what I would call into the category of the changes that we made on the northeast and the southwest quadrants of the village. This is also a first read and addresses the installation of two-way stop signs at 5 uncontrolled intersections These intersections are located at Bruner and Hickory Street, North Street and Adams Street, North Street and Bruner Street, Oak Street and 6th Street, and Park Avenue and 6th Street. And then lastly, there's a recommendation from staff to install a yield sign at Princeton Road and 3rd Street. If we look in our packet, the second page provides a table outlining the characteristics of these intersections, including traffic volumes and crash site history over the past 5 years. This information was gathered by the police department after conducting traffic studies at these 6 intersections. And these studies were done at the request of local residents. The difference between these 6 intersections and the intersections that I previously cited at 3rd and Lincoln is the crash site history. These 6 intersections have only had 4 collective crashes over the past 5 years, versus on the one intersection at 3rd and Lincoln had 8 crashes over 2 years. The crash site history at these 6 intersections does not meet the standard for a control device. However, the limited sight distance does warrant a stop or a yield sign. When we last discussed this matter approximately a year ago, and we did make the changes to the northeast and then the southwest quadrant, there were a number of issues that trustees discussed, and President Colley, I know you discussed also. And I just kind of want to give kind of my thought process on uncontrolled intersections over the past 5 to 6 years has changed. You know, at first I thought if there wasn't a crash history that it probably wasn't necessarily warranted. My thought process on that has changed in part due to as we have uncontrolled intersections become less popular within the village, then people begin to expect there to have controlled intersections. Then these uncontrolled intersections become much more of a variant to any residents, and more importantly, non-residents. Also, I think that the proliferation of services such as Uber, Lyft, Grubhub, and other driver services are bringing unfamiliar drivers into our very quiet neighborhoods that they're not familiar with. And quite frankly, I think that Hinsdale is a very unique municipality that we do have the number of uncontrolled intersections that we have. And with that, I kind of like to open it up for discussion from trustees now, kind of as how we look at these uncontrolled intersections. You know, these 5 or these 6 that we've cited here, they do meet the standards from a sightline perspective, but not from a crash history perspective. And with that, I'd open it up to questions, comments from trustees.
I'll give you some quick thoughts. One, Lincoln and 3rd is a no-brainer, so thank goodness we're getting that one taken care of. So Oak in 6th and Park in 6th. So just 2 kind of thoughts on this. One, that changes 6th Street a lot. There are no stop. There are no stop signs, no controls between Garfield and County Line. It seems to me that at one point the village was the streets were laid out such that was intended to be a I don't know, main thorough east-west thoroughfare, but more than it probably is today. So just one noting that's going to change 6th Street a lot. I'm sure Trustee Harlow might have some thoughts on this one, and that could be okay, but you know, it's for that half mile between County Line and Garfield. It's the first time we're adding these. The other thing is that if you look at the traffic counts, and I'm thinking specifically Oak in 6 because I know that well. With Oak being the right of way, the one with the most traffic. The reason, you know, Oak has got the traffic is probably the school. I'm not sure exactly when these counts were taken, but the only reason to go north-south on Oak around there is probably to get to and from Oak School, which is not irrelevant, but it is kind of time limited. The other reason why I suspect there's less eastbound, westbound traffic on 6th than there might otherwise be is because the road is in such crummy shape.
You can't go very fast on the road, Jerry. So I don't know if you need that.
So at some point, I think we're gonna, make that better. And then and then the relative traffic volumes might change, and you might get back to something that feels more like maybe it was intended to be, which is Sixth has got more carries more traffic than Oak. I don't know, but just kind of pointing that out, and maybe something for us to think about.
Yeah.
Actually, in my experience living at 6th and Park, a lot of people drive really fast down 6th Street. And yeah, it's
Oh,
amazing.
you
And they're,
ruin your suspension.
well,
Go ahead. Now you live there.
they
so.
might not be concerned about that. They might not be of an age where they're paying for the repairs to it.
Oh.
So I don't know, but yeah, people do drive faster on 6th than one would expect.
Yeah.
And just,
You know.
just a couple of comments to build on what Luke was talking about. The first being is that, in addition to Uber and Grubhub and all, it seems like we have an enormously higher amount of trucks that are coming in for Amazon, for, these various delivery services. I think obviously COVID has exacerbated that, but I think that trend is not going to go away anytime soon. The second thing is that just general distracted driving from phones and people texting on their phones. And I can't tell you how many times, even the combination of the two, where I've had, I'm not to pick on Amazon, but an Amazon driver was looking down at his phone and he just ran a stop sign. And so I think that the more control we put into the village, just based on the environment and the technology and the amount of services that we are utilizing, just makes sense.
Yeah, Luke, let me just say, yeah, as you know, Luke, I'm totally agreeing with you. Your analysis, I think, is right on, and I'm very much in favor, particularly on these uncontrolled things. Let's not wait. I don't care what the manual says. Let's not wait for 6 or 7 accidents to happen.
Yeah, and with Jerry, I take the data that you put forth as being, I think it's strong, and we could look at this, but I go back to, as we have less and less uncontrolled intersections, and I talked to Chief King, and Deputy Lilly, they're gonna get us the exact number, but these are small single digit percentages that are left in the village. When you have new residents that are coming to the village, strangers that are driving, and young kids, the less and less uncontrolled intersections that we have, the more of a problem it becomes. And what I think has been difficult over the past 2 or 3 years that I've been working on this is to not really, if there's an uncontrolled intersections and the neighbors, which is the case with all of these intersections, are requesting it, and they don't meet the site, and the intersection that excuse me, does not meet the site distance requirements, it's hard to say that we're not going to put one there. And my issue has always been one of aesthetics. We don't want to have if we get the more signs we can avoid, the better. But I think safety just, trumps that at this point in time. And that's kind of been my thought process on it. And one thing I have asked the police department and the chief to do is, as these requests come in from residents, rather than take them up one by one, is to look at them on an annual basis. So, we're seeing a year's worth of requests here at one point in time, rather than seeing them on a month by month basis.
Yeah. Hey, and just to be clear, I've got no issues with any of these. I'm just kind of saying it's a big change to 6th. And when I saw Oak in 6th, I was surprised to see where the stops. I would have guessed that the stop sign would have gone on Oak, not on 6th. So
yeah, I know Chief King's here. Chief, do you want to touch on that?
Yes, thank you. I think the stop sign went towards the volume at Oak and 6th, but I understand also what you're saying about that condition of 6th Street and how that might change once that roadway gets repaired. Just one other point, we did that for similar reasons. We did the sightline distance analysis up in that southeast quadrant of the village. Few of those intersections are actually, some of them just operated just below the traffic crash ratio. And at least that year's time, in all of those intersections that we changed a year ago, which was by far the most sweeping change we've done in the village in an entire subdivision. We've only had one single accident in that whole area. So, I mean, the numbers, even though the numbers we have here are relatively low, it has made that neighborhood safer.
Okay, and then Chief King, I think it's going to be everybody's unanimous decision for the first intersection at Lincoln and Third. But what do you think has been the cause of, in 2017, we had no crashes, up to 4 in the past 2 years, 4 each in the past 2 years. What has been the cause of that?
Well, we looked at the accidents individually. Sometimes, as one of you alluded, it's somebody unfamiliar with an intersection. I believe every single one of those accidents was a local resident. Some people talked about sightline distances initially. So we actually moved parking back from the intersections to create better sightlines when you're traveling either east or west on Third. But then the accidents continued to happen. And the only real clarity is one striking vehicle said when they got to the intersection, they just thought it was the type of the intersection that there'd be a 4-way stop. So they saw the car coming, but they assumed that car had a stop sign. And, based on the accident history, it's a 2-way control now, but it does justify a 4-way control.
Okay.
Other thoughts, questions? And Chief, will you be able to get for us by the next meeting, the remaining number of uncontrolled intersections in the village?
Yeah, we'll do it. It's actually 6, but we'll actually get a kind of a display in a map packet and send it out with the manager's notes this week.
Okay, thank you.
Look, I'd just like to add,
With that, any other questions or issues?
yeah, Luke, I just want to add one thing. We talked about the last time we talked about intersections about a year ago. I just mentioned the intersection of Maple and Washington, which is right outside the library. You have the library there. You have, kids. Well, when COVID's over, you're gonna have, kids going back and forth. You have a senior center there. You have a church there. For the life of me, I can't figure out why it's not a 4-way stop. And let's not wait for the traffic or the traffic study.
I agree with
Could
that.
you repeat which
Hard to cross
intersection?
Right out in front of the memorial building here.
Yeah, Maple and Washington.
Trustee Burns, I know we studied that intersection. I'm going to have to pull the data to see what, and I don't know if we changed the sightline distances there, but we'll take a fresh look at that.
See, I just to say one more thing, Chief. I mean, I just think there's a lot of pedestrians around there. So that's what kind of drives my concern about that. And, I don't know about sight lines, but it just seems.
Busy intersection.
Yeah.
I agree.
I think there's a line of sight issue for cars that are traveling eastbound on Maple, especially when there's cars that are parked north of the intersection on the west side of the street. They may not be there now because of the COVID restrictions, but.
Well, with that, we've got these, a total of 7 intersections here. What I would propose is that we take these up and vote on these next time, allow Chief to put all the information together on Washington and Maple, and then we'll visit that at a one-off.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. Do that in the future, but yeah, for sure.
Okay, good. All right. Consent agenda. I mean, without any real discussion or material discussion here, I believe that this could probably go on the consent agenda for next time.
I agree.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Is that it for you, Luke? Those are the
That is for now.
Okay. Who had the accounts payable?
I did, all in order. I had no questions. So I'll move to approve payment of the accounts payable for the period of February 1, 2021 through February 12, 2021 in the aggregate amount of $1,322,912.97 as set forth on the list provided by the village treasurer, of which a permanent copy is on file with the village clerk.
Second.
Roll call vote.
Trustee Postuma,
Aye.
trustee Banky.
Aye.
Trustee Stifler,
Aye.
Trustee Hughes,
Aye.
Trustee Harlow,
Aye.
Trustee Burns.
Aye.
Okay, can I have a motion with respect to consent agenda items 7B through 7E?
Move to approve consent agenda items 7B, 7C, 7D, and 7E.
Second.
Roll call vote?
Trustee Postuma,
Aye.
Trustee Banky,
Aye.
Trustee Stifler,
Aye.
Trustee Hughes,
Aye.
Trustee Harlow,
Aye.
Trustee Burns.
Aye.
Okay, Jerry, the appropriations ordinance?
Yep, I'll just make a motion. So I'll move to approve the annual appropriations ordinance for the year January 1, 2021 to December 31, 2021.
Second.
Roll call vote?
Trustee Postuma,
Aye.
Trustee Banky,
Aye.
Trustee Stifler.
Aye.
Trustee Hughes,
Aye.
Trustee Harlow,
Aye.
Trustee Burns.
Aye.
So Luke, Garfield Crossing?
Yep, this is a second read, just for the trustees' refreshment. We referred this matter to the PC and HPC at our January 5th Village Board meeting. This matter did pass through both the Plan Commission with a unanimous recommendation for us to approve it, and also the Historic Preservation Commission. The only material comments during those meetings were that the lights be put on the dimmers for after hours, so as the whole showroom was not lit up after hours. With that, we had discussion 2 weeks ago at our February 2nd meeting. I don't think there were no material comments by trustees, and we're moving this to the second read this evening. So with that, I'd open up to questions or comments. Hearing none, roll call vote.
Oh, let's have a motion and a second, please.
My apologies, Christine.
That's okay.
Motion.
You can make it, Luke, if you want.
I'll make the motion to approve an ordinance approving a major adjustment to an exterior appearance plan for a 2-story commercial building at 26 to 38 East First Street, commonly known as Garfield Crossing.
Second.
Now a roll call vote.
Okay. Trustee Postuma,
Aye.
Trustee Banky,
Aye.
Trustee Stifler,
Aye.
Trustee Hughes,
Aye.
Trustee Harlow,
Aye.
Trustee Burns.
Aye.
Okay. Brad, tollway update. Is there anything that we want to report to the trustees?
No update, President Crowley.
Okay, so that takes us to our only discussion item, which is a request for a liquor license for the BP Amico relating to the Urban Counter Restaurant. One relates to the Urban Counter Restaurant, one relates to the Amico station itself. As I understand it, the first request is that the gas station currently sells beer and wine, and they'd like to have their liquor license expanded to include spirits. So that's the first request. And so this would be the same license that's currently held by Whole Foods and Walgreens. The second request would be for the Urban Counter Restaurant, which is in the gas station, to a B1 liquor license, which would allow them to dispense beer and wine by the glass on the premises to food customers. So any thoughts on either or both of those proposals or requests?
I have some general thoughts on this. First of all, I mean, they're currently allowed to sell beer and wine, correct?
Yes.
Wait, you mean as packaged beer and wine, right?
Correct. So they're currently allowed. So I mean, my concern about this is that in the project management world, we call this scope creep, and by continuing to expand, so to speak, the products that these various institutions can carry, specifically selling hard liquor, I'm just worried that we're setting ourselves up for other types of problems down the road. I mean, I have a very strong view on this. I think that selling beer and wine is fine and acceptable, but I think that as we continue to push this along, And we have more liquor stores selling in the town, and we're putting ourselves in a situation where ultimately the gas station across the street is going to want it, and then then Mobile is going to want it, and then we're going to end up with other institutions that are, putting us in a position where we're just not stopping this, and laying some kind of groundwork in terms of where the line in the sand is. And so my view is, and I feel very strongly about this, is that I object to allowing this particular company to sell hard liquor from their gas station.
Okay. Anybody else have? Let's take that one first. Extending the license for the Amico to sell hard liquor in addition to beer and wine. Anybody have any strong views on that?
I concur with Scott Banky on that. If you recall, when we voted to have Walgreens sell hard liquor, I was a vote against that. My reasoning at that point in time still stands today.
Okay.
Yeah, I tend to agree with Scott. I have a comment on the second one, but right now we're talking the first
Sure,
one.
we're just talking about the first one.
And I had a question as I was reading this. Well, two questions really. If you look at the photos of their store that are available on their website, a couple of them are kind of a look around where you can pan around in the photograph. And I noticed that they have something called a beer cooler or beer, I don't know, it seems to be a different space that you go into, and it has alcohol sales hours on it, which are more limited than the 24 hours that it's open. So I was wondering if they would be intending to be selling spirits 24 hours a day, or if they would be limited to the alcohol sale hours that were on the door that's inside their facility. That was one question that I had. And the other question that I was trying to remember is if Baldinelli, with their new liquor license that they applied for, if they were going to be doing package sales. I thought they were, not just spirits, as cocktails to be consumed in their store.
I think that as part of COVID, we allowed all the restaurants to allow carry out of mixed drinks. I don't know if that's going to, I don't know. I haven't prepared what everybody else's liquor license is, so I don't know the answer to either of those questions. Do you, Brad?
Yeah, the hours that liquor can be dispensed and sales of packaged liquors can be made are not 24 hours a day, but very specific to the license type. I haven't seen what the hours are that are displayed in the store there, but I'm guessing they're consistent with what their license type is.
Okay. Uh-huh.
So we have at least 2 votes that would, or maybe 3 that would oppose the sale of spirits at this gas station. We could short circuit this if there's majority of the trustees think it's a bad idea. We don't have to go any further with it, right? We don't have to talk about hours or anything else if the majority of the trustees are just opposed to spirits generally being sold here.
So, hey, I'm a little uneasy with this. I'm much more uneasy with the next one, but we'll get there. Luke, could you but I always feel better if I can clearly articulate my reasons why. So where's the line here? How would we describe why this is on the other side of the line?
So I would describe this as the other side of the line is generally and this may be flat out wrong, but it's my preconceived notion that, generally people that are going and buying a 5th of Jack Daniels or hard liquor are, may be more risky. It may be a different type of clientele going to do that. I just think it escalates the, for lack of a better term, it escalates the percent of the vice versus, just a casual person going in and buying a bottle of wine before they go home to dinner. I'm not articulating those words very well, and I'm trying to be careful about it. But it's for the same reason. I don't think Hinsdale should have a bar where you don't have to buy food and you just go in and, and start drinking, beer, wine, and and liquor. And Scott brings up a very good point for me. If we allow one to do this, we, in my opinion, then we need to allow others to do it, or else we're picking winners and losers. And also from my standpoint, and I mentioned this during the Walgreens site, it's a lot easier to steal a pint of Jack Daniels than it is to steal a case of beer. And when we have kids that are in our community, and we have kids that take aggressive actions, and I just think it makes it easier when you have that type of alcohol versus beer or wine. Just that simple.
Chief King, have we had any issues at Walgreens since they've started selling liquor?
We've had no issues with them selling liquor. I don't know if, I know other places on retail that have been selling liquor have had like grab and dash types of thefts, but we've had none of those issues actually in town. You know, until you jinxed us right now with that question.
I think when go ahead.
But 2 nights ago, I was actually in the Marianos in Western Springs while there was one of those grab and dash occurrences. I mean, there is probably a greater potentiality for that if you put it up on.
The ordinance does require that any bottle smaller than 750 milliliters be in a locked cabinet, possess a security cap.
Right, but I don't think Scott and Luke's concern is somebody stealing the hard liquor. I think their concern is selling hard liquor to people who go there just for the purpose of buying hard liquor.
Correct. And it's also just the precedent we're setting. I think that we're opening up a potential problem for ourselves as more merchants want to sell hard liquor.
Yeah.
And I think that this allows us to put a line in the sand for that.
Right.
And I think that another aspect of this, for me anyways, is need. We're looking out for our community. Is there a tremendous need in our community to have more outlets to buy hard liquor than there already are?
Right. Well, at this store, if you walk 300 feet to the north, you can go to a liquor store.
And you can go to a liquor store and probably get a better price on what you want to purchase.
Is that liquor store in Oak Brook?
It is.
Yep.
It is.
Wish I had the sales tax revenue, but
yes, I understand that.
We can get more.
But I agree. I would agree with Scott and Luke. I see no good of that. And I think the way you draw a line is we're just not going to allow gas stations to sell hard liquor. I mean, that's a line.
Yep. And that's how I feel.
So, because I guarantee you, and I think Scott mentioned this, if this BP Amico sells, if we give them a license to sell hard liquor, it'll be 1 week before the Shell station asks to sell hard liquor.
And then mobile too. And now you have,
Yeah.
Walgreens, I think that they were very serious about their ability to control the liquor sales at their store.
Yeah.
And I evidently they've done a good job, but how many times now are, Amico, Mobile, Shell,
Yeah.
it gets harder and harder.
And I don't know if this is the right way to articulate it, but the Walgreens is not on a major thoroughfare in town, right? It's in a area where, it doesn't have as much traffic in front of it. You go there for a purpose, and it's a destination rather than something you just drive by and can stop, pick up hard liquor. So there's something about where Walgreens is and next to a food store that just seems to me to be a place that's more appropriate to sell hard liquor for residents who want to buy for a party they're having than a place you can just stop in and buy a pint and get back in your car. I don't know that I'm articulating that very well, but it seems to me to be different in kind than a gas station.
Yeah. I agree with you, Tom. I'm glad to see somebody else had as hard of a time articulating it as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's just the feel of it. I don't think our gas stations in Hinsdale should be on hard liquor.
Our other gas stations sell beer and wine?
They do.
They do.
But hard liquor just seems to me to be a different thing than beer and wine. So we don't have to vote on this, Brad, right? But I think we've got 4 votes. Anybody strongly that we should allow this? Okay. That takes us to the second one. Urban counter restaurants that want to sell beer and wine by the glass on the premises to their food customers. Jerry, you say
Yeah.
you have more of a problem with this?
I have
Yeah,
some good-
to me, this is
I-
clearly on the other side. I mean, consuming alcohol at on premise at a gas station just feels like a really bad idea. So
I frankly have never been in Urban Counter, but do people go there who are not just buying gas? Is it really a real restaurant that is just attached to a gas station?
I haven't been there, but that's my understanding. You can get, I mean, they say you can get burgers and stuff there, but I think what Jerry, I agree with Jerry that, you know, you go in there, this is somebody on their way home from work and they stop there, have a burger and have a couple of beers, maybe 3 beers, and then they hop on the tollway. You know, I'm not sure that's a good idea.
Right.
I have been there. It is a legitimately fine
It is.
restaurant, eating establishment, whatnot. But I just think the circumstances are too close to something we really need to be careful about.
I know it's Chris Elder's favorite restaurant. Anybody in favor of, I view this as less problematic than the first one, but I don't have a strong view. Anybody in favor of having them sell beer and wine?
No,
No?
I'm a no.
Okay. All right, Brad, can you deliver them the bad news? No one.
Sure. So there was a consensus to bring the first request back for consideration or no?
No. No
Okay.
one.
No.
voted.
Okay. Okay, got it. Thank you.
Okay. Staff reports?
I would just again echo your comments from earlier, thanking Public Works for all the hard work that they've done over the past weeks and especially in the past day and a half. Also to remind residents that the refuse pickup has been delayed by a day because of the weather. So if you were to be picked up today, it'll be tomorrow and it goes sequentially in line. Friday will end up being Saturday. And also, while the fire department is going to be trying to dig out and will dig out the hydrants, if you have an opportunity or perhaps someone who wants to do a service project, it would be great if they could help dig out the hydrants because that would be helpful in the event of needing them.
Okay.
That's it.
Hey, Kathleen, question on the garbage refuse pickup. I saw that note. Is that just commercial though? Because residential is Monday and Thursday. So Monday, you know, it happened. Maybe not to everyone, but ours did. Is Thursday going to be delayed till Friday or?
Yeah, well, that's what the message said. We can verify that. The most current information we'll put up on the website, but they indicated every day would be delayed. I mean, everything got moved back a day. So I'm assuming from that email that Thursday becomes Friday.
Okay. Yeah, if we just can
Yeah,
confirm that it's residential and commercial and that everything, yeah, that Thursday becomes Friday.
Yep.
Thanks.
Okay, Brad, we got citizens petition. Anybody, I think I recognize all the numbers on the line. Is there any residents on the line?
Nobody on the line.
Okay. Trustee comments, any trustee wishing to make a comment on anything on or off the agenda? No reason for a closed session. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Roll call vote.
Trustee Postuma,
Aye.
Trustee Banky,
Aye.
Trustee Stifler,
Aye.
Trustee Hughes,
Aye.
Trustee Harlow,
Aye.
Trustee Burns.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good rest of your week.
Thank
Take
you.
care.
All right.
Bye.